Hey, welcome back to Built to Last. I'm Ted Bennett, and today we are in Lackawaxen, Pennsylvania, checking out one of John Roebling's, yes, the John Roebling of Brooklyn Bridge fame's earliest suspension bridges, which is actually a canal bridge. Let's check it out.
Today, we're going to meet one of the most brilliant engineers of all time. In this episode, we're going to meet John Roebling. But we're going to meet him at the beginning of his bridge design reign. Yes, we all know that John A. Roebling, immigrant from Germany, responsible for some of the most monumental bridges of his era. Perfecting the suspension bridge during his career, Roebling designed ever-increasingly more daring and mega-scale structures, including a once-thought impossible railroad bridge over the Whirlpool at Niagara Falls. Followed by the second most famous bridge that most of us are familiar with, his now namesake bridge at Cincinnati. Then, his ultimate achievement, culminating with the Brooklyn Bridge, completed by his son after his untimely death at the age of 63. But in this episode, we're going back to where the daring and monumental Roebling project started. Interestingly, this bridge didn't carry trains or wagons at all. The Delaware Aqueduct carried a canal over the Delaware River at Lackawaxen, Pennsylvania. In 1846, the 41-year-old Roebling was coming off of the successful replacement of the Monongahela Suspension Bridge in Pittsburgh. Roebling had already established his reputation as a success in the wire design business. His wires were used in all sorts of new 19th century technology like telegraph and tugboat cables. To get acquainted with Roebling's work, it's best to understand a bit about his persona. Let's just say it was larger than life. He was described as murderously intense, and about as flexible as the granite that his face seems to have been chiseled from. Driven, intense, stubborn, vengeful, and sometimes harsh. Roebling can be equally described as brilliant, innovating, and careful. One of the world's first modern engineers, Roebling actually used design computations instead of relying upon luck like many of the designers did in his era. He was sometimes misunderstood as a person, but always trusted with the monumental projects. In his era, something like 1 in 5 bridges fell down, but Roebling was delivering something truly modern. In 1846, the Delaware and Hudson Canal was in serious need of improvement. Demand for that sweet Pennsylvania coal going eastward towards New York City was increasing at an exponential rate. The Delaware and Hudson Canal owners came to Roebling with a proposal. Eliminate the need to float canal boats across the Delaware River by elevating the canal above the river. Build an aqueduct. An aqueduct is a bridge that carries water. Roebling has already designed and supervised the construction of a smaller aqueduct near Pittsburgh in 1844. Roebling's scope actually involved the design of 4 such aqueducts for the Delaware and Hudson. Starting design work on the Delaware Aqueduct, I imagine Roebling uttering his catchphrase in thick German accent. I consider the effort of merely getting started fully as great as that of actually executing the work. Roebling was constantly on full blast, aiming phrases like these at anyone not performing at Roebling's definition of peak ability. Roebling designed the aqueduct with a total length of 533 feet, with 4 roughly equal spans. The structure, supported by 2 cables, was made up of 2,150 parallel wires, and the aqueduct carried roughly 2,000 tons of water. The wood frame canal channel and supporting suspension bridge were open to 50-ton coal-laden coal boats starting in 1847. The Delaware Aqueduct was in operation until the D&H Canal ended operations in 1898, when railroads ended the canal era at the beginning of the 20th century. The end of the canal era did not spell the end of the Delaware Aqueduct. No, indeed. Roebling's aqueduct then became a conventional bridge, and the bridge remains in service today, albeit with a 10-ton load limit. However, I suspect that load limit is more cautionary than anything. We all know Roebling designed for way more than 10 tons. The bridge being in service today serves as a testament to Roebling's abilities, and The Delaware Aqueduct is in fact America's oldest wire cable suspension bridge. Growing up with a bridge design father myself, and with my earliest design experience being bridge engineering, I feel a unique connection to both Roebling and possibly more so to his son Washington. As I walk along the towpaths and put my hands upon the massive, nearly 9-inch diameter cables, I could not help but think about the hands that planned and designed this project. What inspired those hands to build to last? How did Roebling foresee a design with a nearly 180-year lifespan? Well, first Roebling designed with a solid understanding of the performance capabilities of his cables. I say his cables because he meticulously developed and designed the individual wires that made the cables. Then, in probably uber control freak mode, Roebling personally oversaw his friends and family members who worked at the fabrication of the wire in his hometown, Saxonburg, Pennsylvania. With keen knowledge of the strength of the cables, he designed the aqueduct so the wires would never be stressed anywhere near the strength limits. And speaking of the cables in the bridge today are the original cables from 1847. During the 1980 through 1990s rehabilitation of the Delaware Aqueduct, the cables were tested and found to be in great condition. Unreal. I've talked about locally sourced materials here on Built to Last before. Roebling chose local stone for the piers. Durability in the local environment with local materials, a thoughtful choice even in 1847. Speaking of thoughtful, Roebling foresaw ice jams and log rafts floating down the Delaware River to Port Jervis colliding with his bridge piers. Loggers frequently floated their cut timber to market in Port Jervis during the seasons of freshets and high flows. In this video, you'll see the Delaware River running pretty briskly, a freshet. To protect the pier, Roebling included wooden pier deflectors. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when, and Roebling made sure the piers were protected from the inevitable collisions. So, after 177 years of operation, Roebling's thoughtful and careful attention to the performance of the structure was far, far, far ahead of his time. Roebling was no doubt operating with a passion and mania for detail that not many could keep up with, but his abilities were on a genius level. As an engineer, seeing what he accomplished here at Lackawaxen is tremendously inspiring to me. It reminds me to think about the operation of my designs in the long term. Roebling's brilliant design, using carefully chosen materials of controlled quality, made the Delaware Aqueduct infrastructure that truly can be called built to last.